This is Laugh of the Medusa. I'm continuing with Laugh of the Medusa, discussion on Laugh of the Medusa, recording number 4. I have been amazed more than once by a description a woman gave me of a world all her own, which she had been secretly haunting since early childhood. Now, Ciso is quoting some examples or some kind of another discussions with another woman. She's pointing out a particular woman who gave her a kind of description that the kind of life she wanted to live or in one way or secretly haunting since her early childhood. A world of searching, the elaboration of a knowledge on the basis of a systematic experimentation with the bodily functions, a passionate and precise interrogation of her erotogenity. So this is the way a woman was denied of the basic rights to explore knowledge, her creativity, seeking or in some way or other finding out solace, finding out satisfaction in just secretly maintaining. It's like dreaming. They cannot always go for, or they at least think, they are made to think that it's not accessible in flesh and blood format. So it's almost like a dreaming effect they go for, they are in search of. So it's about that woman, but even then she was searching. It's not even about some richness, bungalow and luxurious life, but searching knowledge, elaboration of that knowledge on the basis of a systematic experimentation with the bodily functions, a passionate and precise interrogation of her erotogenity. So this is the part where this open writing, this highly explicit writing that became part of later, it became part of women writing. That is confessional, even not even confessional writing, but even later they began to write explicitly about the bodies, which in the former part or in the former years, women even hesitated to talk about, but later they began to. But in the beginning, during that time, it was not even something to be thought of, or at least something beyond the level of achievement. So this is the way that woman talked about to Ciso that time. This practice extraordinarily rich and inventive, in particular as concerns masturbation, is prolonged or accompanied by a production of forms, a veritable aesthetic activity, each stage of rupture inscribing a resonant vision, a composition, something beautiful. Beauty will no longer be forbidden. So now onwards, women begin to identify the importance or relevance of identifying this beauty. In all these, exploring their self, exploring their body, exploring the different features of their sexuality, all these they wanted to talk about. So that is beautiful. But you had been instructed that it is something forbidden. It's not something to be talked about. It's taboo. The feeling of being being categorized under taboo, something not to be talked about, that had been instilled in women, very particularly, or even for social being, cultural gathering as a whole, women in particular, they had been instilled of this notion. They had been given this instruction, not even to think or talk about this. It's something sinful, it's against your personality, your good certificate. So women really hesitated they were hesitant enough to talk about at least to talk about these in front of others. But now onwards, women begin to think about the beauty of the same. Not about some knowledge, it's not something about the scientific, but it's about the inner self, looking into the inner and outer beauty of one's own self. And that becomes the desirable part of a woman's thinking. Or she begins to think or desire about having knowledge or acquiring knowledge about the same. So masturbation, erotogenity, all these had been topics which really women didn't want to talk in front of the public, but later women begin to think about the beauty of exploring the self, because that is part and parcel of myself, and why should I hesitate to talk about that? This is the way they they begin to think in a different way, and there begins that real difference. Talking about the next paragraph, it's not even paragraph wise division. Now onwards, record number, that is the way it's going to be given. So next paragraph, actually it is, I wished that woman would write and proclaim this unique empire so that other women, other unacknowledged sovereigns might exclaim, I too, overflow. My desires have invented new desires. My body knows unheard of songs. So here onwards, now once Seesaw comes to know about the way this woman wishes, she really wishes, she craves that woman writes and invites or encourages other women to write in this way or in this mode as well, or to think in this mode as it's a kind of empire, building this unique empire that other women also can. This unacknowledged sovereigns, she calls the other women as other unacknowledged sovereigns. They also may exclaim, I too. So I also may belong to the same category. So we will overflow. My desires have invented new desires. So once desires contributing to other desires. So inventing new. And my body knows unheard of songs. So new songs begins to be heard. New songs begin to be heard. So time and again, I too have felt so full of luminous torrents that I could burst with forms much more beautiful than those which are put up in frames and sold for a stinking fortune. So that is the another point. So I also have this potential to burst, but the beginning, it's a starting trouble. Women, it's just a starting trouble. One or two of you start talking about yourself. Explore your body, so that others will begin with more intensity. And this is just about a starting trouble. That's what Seesaw identifies or Seesaw emphasizes. And again, this what's happened. Why don't you explain the self? Why don't you take this challenge? This is just about the stinking fortune you are worried about. What is the stinking fortune? The stinking fortune that you are promised of a good certificate. You are promised of the certain labels of being good woman or chaste woman. So that way, that may be at stake. Those labels may be at stake, but that is just stinking a fortune. That is some trifle. It's not something worthy, but you were made to believe that these are worthy, and so that you never wanted to challenge or never wanted to come out of that chain you were holding on to this stinking fortune, giving it too much of importance and relevance. And I too said nothing, showed nothing. I didn't open my mouth. So because of this worry, because of my being worried about this stinking fortune, that particular good certificates to be, or that's in a casual sense, if you talk, that you are worried about the good certificates, or you are worried about being thrown set. So this woman, Seesaw also tells that I too had this kind of disapproval to talk, hesitation to talk about myself. So I too didn't open my mouth. I didn't repaint my half of the world. You may think that when I'm talking, I'm exhorting you to speak openly. You may think that I have already done this, but I too have a world that is even a half repaint. I didn't even repaint the half of my world. This is not just my potential. This is not only potential that I hold. I have much more. But I also was ashamed. I was afraid. See, all these are the feelings that come to a woman when she decides to, when she thinks about talking or speaking up for herself. And I swallowed my shame and my fear. I said to myself, you are mad. I swallowed my shame and my fear. I swallowed it. I said to myself, you're mad. What is the meaning of these waves, these floods, these outbursts? So at times it is about a pulling back. Sometimes she feels that it's really high time that we speak out. Sometimes it is, oh, you're taking high risk, much risk. Don't go for that. You're mad. What about this bursting, flood, waves? All this mean. It's not about the feminist wave she's talking. She's talking about the inherent wave, the current, strong current in a woman, in every woman that may be there, to speak up, to speak out, but at times they swallow this because out of shame and fear. Okay, so what is the ebullient infinite woman who, immersed as she was in her naivety, kept in the dark about herself, led into self-disdain. This is what is happening, self-disdaining, by the great arm of parental conjugal phallocentrism. So that is ruling the whole world, phallocentrism. Parental conjugal phallocentrism. Hasn't been ashamed of her strength. Was that woman, every woman had been ashamed of her strength. Even when you start realizing the strength inside you, you're worried about that, even you feel ashamed, you start being ashamed about your strength. So who surprised and horrified by fantastic tumult of her drives. So it's about a tumult, a chaos inside your very mind, your very unconscious. That is fantastic tumult. Something very contradictory combination. Fantastic tumult of her drives. For she was made to believe that a well-adjusted normal woman. See here, imprinted a notion it is a well-adjusted normal woman. That is the normality on us attribute is given to you and is endowed upon you only if you are well-adjusted as a divine composer. This is the notion we have been instilled upon, we have been told about, we have been made to think about. So they only have this divine composer. Hasn't accused herself of being a monster. So this is in brackets. This is the fantastic tumult of her drives. Hasn't accused herself of being a monster, because she also was, every woman, even a few of them who were beginning to think differently, beginning to think about the denied rights, the repressed potential. At times they are back to the former thinking that I'm doing something negative, I'm doing something wrong, to think about my right to think against the patriarchy, the phallocentrism, which has been given to us as something natural. It's not even ready-made. That even it's ready-made, you cannot even think about, or you didn't even think about in that way. You thought that it's something really natural. So you have been going on practicing, going on obeying, and even this woman herself, she feels that am I a monster? Am I not normal to think against this phallocentrism? So this is the way it pulls you down. Who, feeling a funny desire stirring inside her, so to sing, to write, to dare, to speak, in short, to bring out something new. Who, feeling a funny desire. Sometimes it's like funny desire. Are you making fun of yourself? This woman even feels, even the woman who has started thinking differently, feels at times, or she's pulled back by these thoughts. Hasn't thought she was sick. Hasn't thought she was sick. Sometimes she feels that I'm thinking very differently from others, so that I am sick. Am I mad? So this is the way they are confused. That strong this phallocentric norm or the influence it has on everyone, not just women, men, everyone, irrespective of their sexual differences, gender differences. These phallocentric norms have made us somewhere obedient like anything. And well, her shameful sickness is that she resists death, that she makes trouble. Well, her shameful sickness is that she resists death, that she makes trouble. So now even her shameful sickness, she feels this is a shameful sickness. So they are in confusion. But let us see if out of this whether something new, something better can be made out. At least they are on the verge of thinking differently. So if those women who have started thinking differently, even though they are confused at times or they are pulled back by these patriarchal lessons, the conditioning, let us see, or CISO is at least confident that there will be a change, or they can bring about some changes. So this is the next part. She will talk about this writing, right. So this is the way CISO ends up that part, and next paragraph I will discuss in the next session. Thank you.